Mark Davis, you've said that we need to get from the current state of what you call digital feudalism to digital enlightenment. A lot of people out there watching this on TechCrunch are going to be entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. How can startup guys, how can creative, innovative business people help us go from digital feudalism to digital enlightenment?
That's a great question. So there are a bunch of startups working in this space now and in different aspects of it. So part of the challenge, of course, is make my identity under my control and make it work. Allow my data created by and about myself and who I am to be under my control.
Is this like Reputation Defender, these sorts of companies?
Well, that's more about protecting my online reputation, which is important. But if there's efforts like Diaspora, for example, which is looking at this, and others, is creating networks of identity and relations that are actually under the control of the people who make them. So there's a bunch of efforts there. The other is make sure that my data is actually accessible to me. So it's interesting to think of the history of the cloud, right? So in 1960, all my data is available to me. It's in the cloud on the mainframe, and my dumb terminal accesses it. 1981, 1984, the PC gets invented and sort of reinvented. And all my data is there, it's on my PC. The web comes along, and more of my data goes not just from my PC, but out into private clouds that I don't really control. Mobile, and the mobile internet comes along, and now it's on devices, set-top boxes, PCs, and private clouds. It's strewn everywhere. So just backing up, syncing, searching my data is currently an unsolved problem. And there are a number of startups looking at that. But then you can think, well, how do I create an actual personal data exchange? How do I create an ecosystem for monetizing and creating value out of the data that people create and is created about them? And so the opportunity here is to understand and to produce the right flows of rights and permissions and data so that this ecosystem can actually work correctly. And so the challenge, of course, is that part of why I'm at Microsoft is I think it's a big company challenge, right? Many of these things will be handled by large corporations. But if you think of what can a startup do in this space, and there's some interesting ones here too, how do you make my data visible to me, valuable to me? How do I see it? How do I manage it? How do I understand it? What is the visualization and management platform for my own information? And there's some interesting work that's been going in that area. Similarly, how do I bring together the disparate aspects of my personal data into one place? Schwab, is a new startup that you scan in receipts of your purchases so that you can actually use them. Blippy is starting to look at this as well. So if you think of the different aspects of a user's life, health data, financial data, academic data, governmental information, financial transactions, communications records, contextual information, identity, all of this. Right now, it exists in all these different places. So there are a variety of techniques to aggregate and bring this information together. And one of the big problems is to make the schemas make sense to each other, right? How do you connect information from different sources so that we know it's the same data? How do we refine the crude oil to make it more valuable? So I think in the personal data ecosystem that's emerging, where users are in control of data created by and about them, where they can bank it and exchange it. If you think of all the different aspects of that ecosystem, there's opportunity everywhere. And why will this create new startups? Because when you can bring data together under user control, the value of that data increases tremendously. The efficiencies of advertising, the efficiencies of commerce, the efficiencies of communicating and connecting with other people go up exponentially. And when the rising tide lifts all the boats, you can also create new businesses on top of that as well.
You work for one of the great internet companies, Yahoo. Google is another example, I think, of a great internet company. Is Facebook the first great internet company of the social age?
Oh, I think that would be true. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the sense that I think Facebook really does understand the web, right? And they are building platform technology, not just destination sites. That was Facebook's great insight, of course, is that the key of it is the social layer, the social platform that is enabling the web of people that we talked about before.
Is it Zuckerberg's game to lose, this web of people?
I think Facebook is doing a lot of great work in that area. And in fact, Microsoft is working with Facebook, and we, as I mentioned, released both Facebook profile search and liked results on Bing, where we bring the web of pages and the web of people together and are making a far better search experience than you can have by not having them together. I do think, though, that there's lots of room out there. And creating the web of people, it's not done yet. We're in the middle of that transformation. Creating the web of the world, we're just at the beginning. And creating the personal data ecosystem that handles the privacy and the security and the sharing of that information in a ubiquitous and user-centric way, we're at the beginning of that process too. So there's room for new companies to emerge, and there's room for more mature companies to do interesting and important things.